Hey yo, it's your boy Kaliko. Today on Mining America, we're going to be talking about taking care of your hand tool, your flex shaft, your Prodigy, your foredrum, or any other type of flex shaft like this. It needs to be maintained and taken care of properly. I haven't been maintaining mine recently, and I should have been doing it more. So we're going to go over that in this video. And also, I'm going to talk to you about how to make yourself a hand guard in case you have an end like this that will tend to burn your thumb if you're not careful. More of that right after this. Now, before you go working on anything electrical, you obviously want to have it unplugged. Safety first, make sure you have your foredrum, your Prodigy, any sort of flex shaft you're going to be doing with this unplugged before you do anything else. Now I'm going to remove my handguard and get that out of the way for the moment. Now, the first thing I like to do is take off the hand piece. Now the hand piece is attached with this little ball and this I forget, I don't even know what this thing is called. This clamp, sort of, this side clamp. Now the best way to do this is just take a flathead screwdriver and sort of turn it up to where it's now sitting on the ball. It's not in the hole. Whoops, it almost went right back, didn't it? I'm going to just turn a little bit more. Now you don't want to turn it too far. You don't want this to come off because you don't want the ball to pop out and you have to hunt it down. But once you have it to where it's not in that hole anymore, you can just go ahead and pull it out like that. It's really simple. And then it'll be easy to go ahead and put this back where it needs to be once we reinstall that. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go and put this on the side. Now we have our flex shaft right here. Depending on how tight this piece is attached to yours, you might need a wrench to go ahead and pull it off. Use a wrench like this. Don't use anything with teeth, as that this piece is plastic. You don't want to damage it. Now mine tends to be really loose, and mine also unscrews opposite of the way you would normally think to unscrew something. Instead of going to the left to unscrew it, I'm going to the right. Now this shouldn't have actually popped off that easily. It has a flat spot on here for where it attaches. Yet at the same time, it has an Allen wrench screw to make sure that it stays attached. That Allen wrench screw is not tight enough to make sure it stayed attached. It should have been. So we put it back together. We're going to make sure we take care of that. Now, after you have your sheath unplugged from your motor, you can just go ahead and pull this out. But before I pull this out, I'm going to clean off my table. I'm realizing how dirty my table is from going through rocks. All right, now that my table area is a little bit cleaner, I'm going to go ahead and pull this flex shaft and the silencing spring out together. I left a little bit of old grease on my hands. Could have got some gloves on. Matter of fact, I'm going to do that real quick too. All right, I got my gloves on. Now, instead of just greasing this and putting it back in, mine has been used for a while, and I can see little bits of rust running along the shaft. It has a little bit of a red tinge to it. Now, it's not really rusty, and I definitely have some dark buildup over here on this piece that you can see. It doesn't look very clean. Not as clean as we'd like it to be, that's for sure. I'm spinning the wrong piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave these two together right now, and I'm going to see if they'll fit inside this little container I have right here. Let me sort of wind them together. Put them in a circle. Don't want to bend them to where it's like difficult or to where I put a kink in it or anything like that. Just want to do it all nicely. So I got it all in the bottom of there. Now you can go ahead and use some high-grade rubbing alcohol if you want, although not like you're going to find any of that around right now. This is coronavirus season for anybody that sees this video a year from now. And I'm going to use some acetone, some stuff I had already in the shop for cleaning some other stuff. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of acetone in there and shake it around a little bit. Although, of course, then the spring starts popping out of the container already, so it's not But I don't want to put a whole bunch of acetone in. There's no need to be wasteful. You can see from the color that the acetone works really quickly. And I just wanted to let it break some of this up, yet now the thing doesn't want to sit in the bottom. I should have used a bigger Rubbermaid container. That's what I'm finding out. My Rubbermaid container should have been a tiny bit bigger. There we go. I'm going to take me a roll of shop towels I have right here. And I'm going to go ahead and clean these off. First thing I'm going to do though is, oh, I guess I can't take the silencing spring off. I thought I could just pull the silencing spring off, but I really can't pull the silencing spring off. So I'm going to back it up a little bit from the rest of the shaft, flex shaft piece. I'm going to clean off this end down here really good. Dip it in the acetone, get a little bit more of that on there. Now don't let the acetone fumes knock you out or anything. This is definitely going to be stinky. There's no reason not to go ahead and take the... Maybe I should have just soaked it longer and a little bit more. There's no reason not to just go ahead and put on your mask, your P100 mask, if that's what you're using to keep dust out. I use a P100 mask. You might be using something different, like a regular dust mask. Boy, I've got that spring really pushed down. It can push that silencer spring down a long way. You can see that stuff definitely coming off. Whoops. Don't want to break the silencer spring, so don't want to push it down so far that it might end up damaging it. Now I'm going to hold the silencing spring and just go ahead and clean that a little bit. Now I want to knock any extra pieces of shop towel I have in there that might have gotten stuck in the spring. I want to get those out of the spring. We don't want to put those back in the sheath of the flex shaft at all. This piece is much cleaner than it just was, that's for sure. Not perfect, I wouldn't say, but much, much cleaner. What looks like rust is mainly gone too. Doesn't look brand new, but it definitely doesn't look like it just did. Get a up close look at it. Can definitely see that it looks way better than it did. Now you can just let your spring, you can just let this whole flex shaft piece, spindle, I'm not sure what this thing is called, but you could just let this whole thing sit in some acetone for a little while and then dry it off if you wanted to, or you could clean it the way I did just by rubbing it down with some acetone. But getting most of the old grease off of it will definitely be a benefit to when you go and put new grease on it. It'll make the new grease last longer than it would being gummed up by the old grease. Now my hand piece, it doesn't really come apart like the other one does. It has its own bearing set inside of it, And I've never seen how to pull one of these apart. I didn't even look up to see if there's a video online or anything about that. But I just wanted to test it and see how well it spins, just to see if it might be time to change it out. And it spins really, really well. Like, the bearings that are inside of this are still doing their job really well. So this handpiece is just fine and ready to go. Now, to keep from getting grease all over the place, I put down some shop towel, paper towels, to catch anything when I go ahead and lubricate this. Now, I'm not really excited about using this WD-40 protective white lithium grease. Now, this type of tool is supposed to be lubricated with white lithium, but I do believe it's supposed to be a high temperature white lithium. Yet my Lowe's happen to be out of any sort of high temperature white lithium I could find, and this was the only lithium grease there that actually said the temperature that it can handle. And I'm pretty sure this thing could possibly get over 300 Fahrenheit, but this is the best I got, and something's better than nothing. And my handpiece, my 4-drum, my flex shaft, it was making a whole bunch of noise when I was carving recently. And so I want to cut that noise down, and that means cutting the friction down. So this is what I'm going to use. If you can find a high temperature white lithium grease, or order it online, or even order some 4-drum flex shaft grease, you'll be doing a little bit better than this probably. By looking at that go through that paper towel, I probably should have used cardboard instead of paper towels of any kind. This grease is probably going to go right through this paper towel, to tell you the truth. That's fine. I'll clean the table up with some of that acetone. Now I'm just going to go ahead and spin it around in there. I'm going to give it one more spray, although I know I'm using way more. I definitely used way more than I needed to right there. And now we're ready to go back into the sheath. Trying to catch it. Can I catch it? Oh, I got it. Go in the center, dude. Go in the center of the hole. Don't you want to go in your hole, flex shaft? Go in your hole. Go home. Horrible Happy Gilmore reference right there is what that is. And now it's just not wanting to slide down for me like I imagined it would. So let me do this. There we go. And of course I got the stuff all over my hands right there. Let me pull this up. And exactly what I said, there's a big old line of it going across the table. I'm just gonna try that a little bit. But as we saw a minute ago, acetone is a great grease cutter, because I don't want to get lithium grease all over my rocks or anything else I set on this table. I'll just go ahead and clean this up with shop towel and some acetone real quick. Is that we actually want to put this part on first. This end is going to end up sticking out what we need. So we're going to want to attach this to that first thing. Like I said earlier, there's a flat spot on this, so you just want to line up your Allen wrench spot with your flat spot. Goes right up and over. And I tell you what, that sinks into the threading, which makes me sort of hesitant about screwing that little Allen wrench screw in. Yet it's something that's going to be needed, I would imagine. I'm going to put my Allen wrench inside of the screw. I'm going to slide that up to where it's actually hitting my Allen wrench, and then I'm just going to tighten it a bit. If it will tighten a bit, because apparently mine is not going to tighten. Oh, yep, that was it. All it did was barely a turn at all, and mine went tight on there. So then, of course, the next spot would be turn it opposite of the way you normally would. You notice I started immediately going to the right to go righty-tighty, but that's not how this works. This one works to the left, lefty-tighty, opposite of what you would normally think. Now, this was not even hand tight on there when I started, but I'm just going to give this a quarter turn. I don't want to give it more than that. There we go, just to snug it up a little bit. Now we have our other piece sticking out, and it picked up a little bit of black from the inside of the shaft itself, but that's going to be okay. That's not going to be too big of a deal. That just goes right in here, and the best way to do this is just to look inside. There we go. You're going to want to look inside there, and you want to see where the notch is, and you're going to want to match it up with the notch on the spindle, because it's easier to match it up with the handpiece and then push the handpiece where it's supposed to be than it is to try and get the flex shaft spindle piece to match up. There we go, and then you push it in, and when it seats like that, you know you're in. Now what we're going to want to do with this is we want to turn our little black piece of metal and get it right back up, but you don't want that to happen. You don't want the clip to move off of the ball bearing, or the ball bearing will go flying across the room, and it can be a hell of a time finding it again. So you want to pay attention to that. I'm trying to get it to turn, but it's just not wanting to turn back onto its ball bearing the way I'd like it to. So I'm going to go on the other side, and let me back this up a little bit. It's right above it. There we go. Get it to pop on just like that. And then we're good. And everything should spin really well. It should be way quieter than it was before. And now we've got our flex shaft ready to be used again after maintaining it a little bit. Giving it a little bit of work to make sure it's going to work and last us a lot longer. Because heat is the enemy of almost everything on the planet. Unless it's really cold out. Now the next part of this video is making us a handle for our handpiece, because anytime those things hit you when you're working, it will burn your hand. So this is really rather simple. The best way I've found to do it, this one's a bit worn out, I'm going to make a new one anyways, is with a pool noodle. And if you're in the right areas, you'll only pay like 99 cents for a pool noodle. Get them from the dollar store. If you're not in the right areas, then you might pay like $5 for a pool noodle. But the great thing about the pool noodle is the centerpiece is a perfect fit for our hand piece. So one of the first things we're going to do is get yourself a knife of some kind. And you're just going to want to measure it to be right about the same size as your handpiece, and then just go ahead and spin the pool noodle, and you can go ahead and test it. Mine's a little bit smaller, but it's still the perfect size for me to grip it. Now this by itself is just too thick to be comfortable, so we're going to go ahead and cut this down. Now any sort of sanding device will probably work to cut this down, yet I like to use these. I purchased these at some point a long time ago, and they are some polishing buffs, sanding buffs. I'm not sure exactly what this stuff is made out of. I know they're best for polishing metals, yet they work really good for this. This is going to make a hell of a mess, so understand that before you get started doing this. All right, I've got my piece of pool noodle. I've got my 4-drum plugged in. And the way I like to do this is I want to leave a flared end at the top and the bottom. So I leave the top and the bottom almost exactly the way it is, and then I want to cut in to the other areas. I'm not trying to make finger marks or anything, and I'm being careful because it's really easy to go too far on this pool noodle. Literally want to use almost no pressure. And these metal polishing buffs, they definitely grab onto the pool noodle. And depending on how thick your hand is and how big your grip is, it really depends on how thick you're going to want the handle to be. And remember, you can always take more off. You can never put more back on. Although you should be able to make a fair amount of these out of one pool noodle. This is definitely smaller than I usually use. I should have cut this a little bit longer. And one of the reasons I like to cut it longer is because once the top of this starts getting worn out, like this one, and it starts going through and starting to touch the spindle of the flex shaft handle, I can just turn it around and use the other one. Yet if you look, this one's just a little bit longer than this one, and I can feel it on the grip. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thin out the top a little bit more than I normally would. And the bottom. Now last time I did this, I think I used the red one of these, or maybe it was the green one, but I think the black one's a little bit more coarse because it's leaving me with more stuff hanging around than the other one did. But it really doesn't matter all that much. And I myself have a bag. I have a bag of these. I probably have 30 of them. So let's say for the first 20 people to request anytime they purchase something from me for me to throw one of these in their order, I will do that free of charge. So if you're one of those people that makes a lot of orders from me, but you don't have something like this to go ahead and cut yourself a handle for your Prodigy or for your drum or for just about anything, then just go ahead and let me know when you're ordering something out of my store. Just ask for one of the metal polishing buffs and I will include it with your order free of charge. And that's how I create my handle, one that I can slide up or slide down, And anytime I'm done using this, like when I'm carving and everything's all wet, I take this off so that it doesn't help rust anything out. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and in some way found it both informative and insightful into the care you need to take in order to make your tools last as long as possible and protect yourself from a little bit of minor friction burns. Don't forget to check out my store for all kinds of stuff that I'm selling, from fire agate to sunstones to who knows what might be in there when you watch this video. Anything you purchase definitely helps support this video. And this channel, I meant to say. Not just this video, but this channel. Check out my Buy Me a Cup of Coffee link to help support this channel. Any and all support that comes from you guys is a real big help to this guy. So, I love you for watching. I'll see you in my live streams, and cut some fire agate, man, because this stuff is awesome and amazing. And reality, in the world of gemstones, it's extremely undervalued. Everybody that loves it knows that. We sure do. I love you for watching, and I'll see you soon.